We chased him so hard that I actually mocked up the logo for Storm Creek. What
Crow
was
Creek.
it? Crow Creek
Yeah.
number 2. We
Yeah.
put the big Roman numeral on it. We sent it to him. And I think we had him. He was saying the term sheet looks good and all that. And then NGP took him to Argentina to shoot pigeon. And he wasn't coming with Kane at that point.
He wasn't going with Kane. Yeah. The last that was what that last iteration completely turned me off to private equity. That was my first private equity venture, was with Tecolote.
Yeah.
And we bought this huge, we had 250,000 acres and we were doing great. We were drilling great wells and we were returning $25 million quarterly to NGP, doing what you're supposed to do, running an oil and gas company.
Right.
And it didn't matter at the end of the day. They were going to roll us up with 2 other companies from Tulsa and it didn't matter. I was just, this isn't we're doing the right thing and we're still losing.
Yeah. And it's, I never want to be, since they kicked my ass out of the club, I never want to defend private equity.
Yeah.
But, there is just as we all know, unfortunately, G&A is not linear in oil and gas.
Right.
It's more kind of stair-stepped. So, I mean, if you think something trades at kind of 5 times cash flow, I mean, whacking out $5 million in G&A across the portfolio is $25 million, you know? And so, the other thing I feel bad about for management teams is shit can happen.
Sure.
And you just get tagged as being bad or stupid or whatever when, no, that was a known risk and it just happened.
Just the risk that we thought was there happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so we could go on with the love fest with Storm forever, but my favorite Storm story that he told me is one night he comes home with his wife. They've eaten dinner. She's got the doggy bag, this big piece of fish that, for whatever reason, had almost a whole fish, and they're just arguing in the car all the way home. They get to the front of the house. They unlocking the front door and they're just going at it, and she throws the doggy bag and the fish at him. So the fish winds up in the front lawn. Storm opens the door, the dog runs out, smells the fish, goes over there, gobbles the fish down. Storm said until the day that dog died, every time it went in the front yard, it stood right where that fish was, just waiting for the magical area that
might show up again. You never know.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Well, Greg Little, you're cool to come on. So this is kind of wild. So John, who works here with us at Digital Archives, y'all go to college together?
John and I were in the master's program at Tulsa. So University of Tulsa has they used to, they don't anymore, it's a Master's of Energy Business program, which basically is an MBA, but energy focused. And he and I were in the program together. So
gotcha.
We finished together. So John and I have known each other for a while, and just down here at NAPE trying to figure it out.
Good. So, when you do, come back and tell us.
Shit. Yeah. If anybody has any suggestions, I'm.
My first NAPE was 1995, and I think it started in 93, maybe in 94.
That's strong. I think I was thinking about that yesterday. My first one was 05. So we're going on the 20-year.
Oh, shit.
That's a lot of bourbon and Cokes over
at the Four Seasons bar.
A lot of Four Seasons bar.
Or as we call it, the 2.5 seasons.
Yeah.
Because that was always the crappiest Four Seasons in the whole chain.
It was packed. I was actually there last night. It was packed. They actually have a really good bourbon selection, which is shocking.
Well, they put some money into it recently, so it's not as bad as it used to be.
Yeah. So yeah, it was packed. But yeah, we're down here just trying to figure it out at $2 gas, and just I don't know. We'll see. So
back when I want to say it was 1995, it was back at the Westin Hotel in the Galleria. So it wasn't at the George R. Brown.
Right.
And they literally had booths. So it looked like a science fair,
Yeah.
in junior high. And my hero was this guy. I walk up, I'm a young associate. I don't know anything about oil and gas. I walk up, and this guy pitches me on this 3D seismic, this brand new thing.
Sure.
got this bright spot. And so he draws a map. He's like, man, there's the high. We're going to hit it. Going to be a boomer. Next year I come back. He had gotten the well drilled. It was a dry hole, but he basically moved the high, an offset location over. And he said, oh, yeah, we picked up a little of this in the log. We're down dip. We're going over there. That dude got it drilled again. And then it was a dry hole. And then he moved it up an offset. And that guy got that same prospect drilled 3 times.
I mean, he
never
wasn't
found
wrong. He was just, I don't know, persistent, I guess.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that going on. Yeah, I think it's a very weird time in the industry from like a small operator standpoint, which is what I am.
Yeah.
And so it's really weird from a acquisition standpoint. It's very hard to get people to sell you anything right now because they don't want to sell at the low. They're not going to sell unless they do, unless they have to.
And low is price and multiples.
Sure.
I mean, it's not just low prices.
And then the other factor that we've definitely run into is debt. Like bank debt right now is so difficult to get anything done. But great anecdote to that is we were trying to close a deal at the end of the year last year. Very small deal. It was basically a bolt on to what we already have. $1.5 million. So literally not a lot of money.
Right.
And the whole point of I was going to a bank that I didn't normally deal with because I wanted to establish, this is a small deal. I want to establish different banking relationships and want to go try to do, just this little bitty deal. Surely, that won't be a big deal. We were buying it at PV 40. Okay. So the bank says, oh, well, we'll loan you 50%, 60% of PV 9. They tell you that.
Yeah.
None of that is true.
Yeah.
Because if I bring you a deal at PV 40 and you tell me that you're going to fund 50% of PV 9, you're going to fund the whole thing.
Right.
They had no interest in that.
Yeah.
They wanted half the money up front. They wanted a 1-year AM and they wanted, and they wanted accelerated payments. And this was a small deal that was making, it's old production making at current prices, probably making $50,000 to $70,000 a month, like nothing. It's a small deal, but operationally it was a good deal for us. But I was like, guys, this is a bad deal for you, and it's a bad deal for us. It doesn't make any money at the terms you're telling us,
right? And
you say you're an energy lender, but if you're not willing to lend on PV 40, you are not an energy lender. Like you're just a bank, which is fine. Right. It's fine, but that's not what you are. Yeah. And so we ended up losing the deal, and it's still out there, I guess, if we wanted to go get it. But that just kind of shows you conventional lending. We did our first deal. This was in the middle of COVID. I had just finished. I was working for a private equity backed group, and got rolled up. As they were consolidating. It was NGP, and so me and my partner were like, we can do this. We can go raise money and go do it ourselves. Well, go try to raise money in the middle of COVID when oil went negative, and that's really and pitch a oil and gas deal. That's really hard. It took us about a year to raise. We raised $1.3 million. Okay, and the deal we ended up buying was a marketed deal, and I have a friend that is now our banker. Is the bank we use exclusively, pretty much. He said, well, what about, conventional lending just didn't make sense financially, like economically it didn't make sense. What about a USDA loan? I was like, well, tell me about a USDA loan. So the USDA has a program where they lend for rural development, and rural development can mean a lot of things, but the asset we were buying was out in the Oklahoma Panhandle. And if you've ever been in the Oklahoma Panhandle, it's all wind and snakes. That's it. There's nothing else out there.
I think that's the definition of rural.
Yeah. It is the most rural you get. And so I knew we qualified on that. And so the great thing about the USDA is they will lend 80% loan to value. Okay. They will, it is the term of the loan is the half-life of the asset. Okay. So the asset we were buying is like 25 years. So we got like a 10 plus term, like length on the loan, and it's a fixed interest rate. And so at the time, interest rates were low, and so we got a good term on that. They don't redetermine every 6 months; it's just flat, right? So literally bought a $8.5 million asset with $1.3 million in equity, and used a USDA loan. Now the downside to USDA loan is you're dealing with the government,
Yeah.
right? And so it takes longer. Like, typical bank, you can get a deal closed in a month and a half, depending on what it is. This took 6 months because you have to go through the local USDA, and if it's larger, the USDA loans are capped at $25 million. And so if you go over a certain amount, you have to go through the USDA office in Washington. So we were lucky enough. We were low enough financially, the purchase price, where we only had to go through the state. Well, the problem with the state is those are state employees. If you ever dealt with state employees, like,
go get a driver's license.
Yeah, best of luck. And so the crazy thing is we could never get a response from them, right? Like, tried and tried and tried. We know that the office is in Stillwater, okay?
Right.
In an unmarked building, like, that's locked. You can't get in. And me and my partner, more me, this is where my internet savvy comes in. I track the guy down that's in the head of the Oklahoma USDA. I found him on Facebook. Okay. And I tracked him down, and I found out where the office was and what his name was and what his phone number was. Because you can't call the USDA. You can't pick up a phone and call them. Just
okay.
There's no, there's no communication. They'll talk to the bank. They really won't talk to you. So we tracked him down, and we went to Stillwater. It was me, my partner, and the president of the bank. Walked in, met with him for an hour because they had never done an oil and gas loan. Like, they're typically dealing with farmers, right? I mean, it's, rural development. And so we sat there for an hour and walked them through the financials and showed them what it was. Ended up approving it. It was the first oil and gas loan through the USDA in the state of Oklahoma.
Now, I mean, any of the crazy green stuff, or you were just dealing with an Oklahoma dude?
Dealing with an Oklahoma dude.
Okay.
Like, it was a guy from Stillwater who liked to work and then kick off at 2:30 to go fishing.
Yeah.
Like, it was a good old boy. But they're good old boys that don't want to be messed with, right?
Right.
And so you walk a fine line between pissing them off and, like, being diligent. Like, it's a tough line to walk, but I think we walked it pretty good. And so, it turned out great. We bought this asset, and, we were very fortunate in the run up. We bought it at $2.20 gas, and then for the next year and a half, gas was, $5, $6, $7.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So we ended up, with that $1.3 million investment, the day we closed, I handed the equity partner his check back because we had made enough between the signing of the PSA and the close to give him his entire check back. Like, 'cause it went from $2.20 to $4 in the 3-month span.
Yeah.
And then since then I returned $10.5 million in dividends back to him in a year and a half. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that doesn't suck.
Like, it's a nice 10x. And then the asset.
By the way, I hope Colin McClellan's listening to this, because a certain shareholder would like to see that from Digital Wildcatters. But
get on that, Colin.
Yeah.
And then operationally, I'm under no illusion that, like, pricing didn't exponentially help that, but
I'd always
but we bought right.
Yeah.
But then also we went in and improved production by 25%. It was just low hanging fruit. We don't drill. We just went in there and did workovers and did some recompletes and
plumbing.
Yeah, did what we do. And the value of the asset now, we had an economics run done by a third party out in Oklahoma City 3 months ago, and it was $30 million.
Yeah.
And we bought it for 8.5. And so, like, one of the things that I'm running into now, and I'd love to hear, like, your advice, anybody's. I'm open to anybody's advice right now.
It's worth what you'll pay for it. So go ahead.
So I have that story, right?
Right.
That's a good story. How do I go raise money off of that?
Well,
for my next fund, do I just tell you that story and be like, give me money? I've done this. Let me do it again. Or do I go buy an asset, right, and present it to you? If you're ready to invest $1 million, then I'm saying, look, we bought this asset, the second asset that we're going to buy, that we have a PSA on, we're closing on it, and we're going to do the same thing we just did. And here's the base for whatever the next fund is. That's an easier raise, I think.
Let me do this, because this actually dovetails with the question I wanted to ask you, because I think a lot of folks that listen to my podcast want to be you. They want to go out, find an asset, do this, you figure out a way to finance it and all. And so I'll go first with my answer to your question, but be thinking about if you had to summarize what you did with an eye towards repeatability, like how can somebody else go do this? I'm going to ask you that question, because I think these two things dovetail together. Because if I'm a fund of some sort, an NGP or the like, that's a great story. It also sounds like, how do I know you can do it again?
Right. Right.
And so you want to, kind of put the story is less, here's what I did. The story is I learned, and this is why I can do it again. So it's kind of replicating that. I found that, I can buy out of bankruptcies, and the thing I can do that's unique is the paperwork or whatever it is. Or I have found, we can go force pool people out of stuff, or whatever the case is. You've got kind of your unique aspect. Generally speaking, smaller, nichier type stuff has more credibility when it comes to repeatability.
Sure.
I'm going to go in. I used to love private equity guys that say, I need $500 million. Can I go, outbid Chesapeake in an auction? Great.
Good, best of luck.
That sounds best of luck. So it's kind of like, what is that repeatability? And then the other thing I would say too is, it may just be one of those things that if I'm sitting in your shoes, I'm out looking for that next thing. And I always, and this is a hard thing to wrap your mind around, but I always said that really the way to view a barrel of oil, a field, or whatever is you convert it into dollars and out of dollars. And so if your field's at the point where you could go sell it at a PV 10, 12, something like that, and you find another asset that you think you can return 30 or 40, sell this asset and go buy that one, and just keep compounding money. Because, every time you start over on a financing, you lose, in effect, the compounding of that money to some degree. Because it's, at the end of the day, people just freaking hate oil and gas. They just do right now. We talk all the time on here about how, we just ceded the narrative to the environmentalists. We don't tell our stories. And then we whine about how, the environmentalists get this. I'm like, well, show me your content.
Yeah.
I don't have any. Okay, well, great. What happens in a vacuum? We kind of know the other side expands. So it's really hard from that point of view. And then because back in the day, you used to be able to go through a process. I'm going to go see Kane. I'm going to see NGP. I'm Quantum. I'm going to get my term sheets and blah, blah, blah. And now it's trying to find that like buddy that helped finance your business. It's, it takes a lot of searching.
Yeah. It's a different animal, I think now. Just from a PE side, I know for a fact, it used to be you make the team, you get a term sheet from, NGP, Kane, whoever the hell it is, and then you burn G&A for a year trying to find an asset.
Right.
PE isn't paying for G&A right now.
Yeah.
Like you are not getting it. And that was honestly on a much smaller scale, that was our idea. Is like, hey man, we are not going to staff up. So many people make this mistake. There is a specific company right now I'm thinking of in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that has drilled 3 wells, right? Maybe 4. They have 40 people in the office. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Our company has 500 wells and another 300 non-op. I have 15 people in the field and 4 people in my office, including me.
Yeah.
Like,
on a good day.
Run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Run lean. Like you have to run as lean as you possibly can. Cause at the end of the day, it's just going to help you break even.
Yeah.
But also like it's not if you're one of those groups that's out there just burning G&A, burning investors' money, like, cause you have the nice office, our first office, right? So Tulsa, if you know anything about Tulsa, it's kind of split between like Midtown and South Tulsa. And the further south you get, it's all chain restaurants. It's like, think of the worst dystopian,
The
landscape that you can think
zone.
of. Yeah, that is
Okay.
that is South Tulsa. I live in South Tulsa. And so my partner lived even further south in Bixby, which is a suburb, if you don't know anything about Tulsa. And I was like, hey, man, this is after we bought the asset. I was like, I don't want to be downtown. It doesn't make any sense. Like, we can do this not downtown.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no reason to pay X. This was, when commercial real estate wasn't begging for people to show up. Like, the prices were still high. I was like, look, it's ridiculous. We ended up getting a little executive office that a guy built in Glenpool, Oklahoma. Glenpool is you wouldn't know that you were in Glenpool, like if you came out of Tulsa. Like, it's just all one place. Glenpool, back in the day, the reason it's called Glenpool is because the Glenpool of oil was kind of the big oil boom in Tulsa, that
Right.
little city. And so we ended up getting a $3,000 a month 6 office with a conference room. Like, that was our office for the first 2.5 years. It was great. Like, nobody messed with us. We literally, he built a bunch of these little executive offices, and he's in Glenpool, so he can't rent them. So literally it was us, a insurance company, a roofing company, and then he rented the rest of the other 6 buildings to a marijuana grow operation. So we would show up every day at the office and just, it was, you'd smell the processing going on.
Right.
And honestly, if you went to our dumpster, you could start your own grow operation, because they dump the plants out there, which I'm sure is not regulation, but that's how they were rolling in Glenpool. But like, you don't need all that stuff. And the minute you think you do, you're doing it wrong, I think.
Yeah.
You don't need all that stuff.
So I'm going to ask you this question are there 3 to 5 lessons, 2 to 4, whatever you want to say, that you would tell the young guy who wants to go replicate what you do? Number 1 was clearly keep G&A low,
Mm-hmm.
and all. And then the thing I'm going to follow that up with when we start talking about that is, because I want to roll into something else you do. I actually think we are missing a huge thing in energy when it comes to fundraising in any sort of shape and way. We don't use content to do it. We put together a book.
Right.
We go into NGP's office or Quantum's office, and we put it down and we walk through it. And we write on that book, secret, punishable of death if you share this with anyone. Any other industry, you go pull up Mark Andreessen Horowitz, the largest VC fund on the planet. You pull up their website, it looks like a media company.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, here's our podcast about the latest issues in gaming. Here's our white paper on the unbundling of LinkedIn, et cetera. Pull up Carlyle, pull up KKR. All these guys. I mean, even, if you think about it, Warren Buffett's annual shareholder letter was the how you used to do content. You'd write it, and he would get so much in the way of press for that and everything. So I actually think all of energy fundraising should be doing this: podcast, posting on Twitter, LinkedIn, telling our stories. Like, I'd advise you, next time you go out to the field, you got an iPhone, shoot what you're doing, document it. People go, wow, that's cool. And I do think if a lot of us were doing that, it kind of turns your world from outbound, you chasing money, to potentially stuff popping in. Because with the leverage of the internet, everybody on the planet can see what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I would say, to answer your first question, like, how do you do what I did. Part of it is just blind confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
Like I'm a confident person, but I'm also I don't think I know everything. Like I'm very I know that people are smarter than me. I know technically and just in general very smarter than me. I mean, I got a couple degrees, but that's just because I'm stupid. Like really just a glutton for punishment, really. And I think honestly, you know, you're talking about John, like he and I went and got a energy MBA because I was pissed off because I had been passed up for a promotion and it was given to a guy that had the same credentials as me. And so I was pissed off. I was like, I will never let that happen again. I will be more qualified than anybody that I go up against. And so that's why I did that, which I don't know if that's $40,000 at University of Tulsa later. I'm not sure that it helped, but
that's a real fuck you.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really was.
That was
it really was. Yeah, my wife was really pleased. But part of it is just blind confidence. Like you have to believe that you can do this because you've seen other people. Let me tell you something. Here's the secret. Most of the guys that are super successful in the oil business, like it's not because they're super smart. It was because they were in the right place at the right time, or they knew the right people, or they worked their ass off. Like it's one of those three, more than likely. And so that's part of it. The other part that I would say, especially in the current times with financing and just, you know, gas is under $2 right now. Be creative. And I don't know what that necessarily means for you. For me, it was find creative financing. And so, you know, like I told the story about the USDA, that was the creative financing for me. And I'll do it again. I hate the process. And, you know, the next big deal we'll buy because the terms are so good. Like I don't worry about my debt service. I just don't because it's so small considering, you know, just the general cash flow that we have, you know, month over month. And so be creative, whether that's bank financing or friends and family or institutionally, like whatever it is, you've got to be, you know, you've got to be creative in that way. And the third thing I would say is,
let me add one point there because I had this discussion a couple of nights ago. Young guy at the bar, hey Chuck, if I want to build my own company, what advice do you have? You know, I'm starting my own company. How do I structure the financing? And he started talking about it. And I go, hey, I'm going to sound like a real huge dick here. And I don't mean to, but how much money are you worth? Yeah. Just tell me. And I'm sure the guy wasn't worth this, but he said, man, I've got about $100,000 in the bank. Mm-hmm. And I just told him, sign whatever they put in front of you. Yes. It doesn't matter. Don't get cute. Try to structure this, that. You just go talk to 10 people. And if one's willing to offer you money, you just sign it and go.
Yes.
Because there is no poor to rich person on the planet
that signed a great deal the first time.
Yeah. And that's why they're rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got into the game. Yeah. It turned out they were a player.
Listen, the guy that financed us is a friend, right?
Right.
But he still made a shit ton of money off of me in the past 2.5 years. I made a little bit of money, but he made a whole lot of money. You know? Yeah. And so, yeah, get the first deal under your belt. It doesn't matter. Because like, a track record is more important than what the fucking terms of the deal were.
Well, and I always tell people too, it's like around here at Digital Wildcatters. I mean, if you know, I was the lead investor on the last round, and if I make a lot of money, Colin can come in here and ask for stuff, and that's usually an easy conversation.
Yeah.
It's not an easy conversation at time zero when I think I'm writing a check.
Sure.
That I'm going to lose all of it, and all I've done is so that I have a nice podcast studio.
Sure.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah.
Just sign it. Get in the game.
Yeah, get in the game, build your reputation. I mean, I now have, you know, I met with a buddy yesterday that's the CEO of a company here in town, and he was like, you now have a story. Like you didn't have one, 2 or 3. You had all the education in the world, and you had you know almost 20 years of work in the industry, but now you have a story.
Yeah,
and that's more important than whatever the terms of the deal were.
Totally.
And so, I had a third point about.
And I cut you.
No.
Sorry.
The third point is, I am not an engineer. I am not a geologist. I have a law degree. I have an MBA. I'm I'm third generation oil and gas. I know just enough to be dangerous. And so have people around you that know what the hell they're doing. I have a great partner who, I mean, I'll tell anybody that wants to listen. He's the best operational engineer I've ever met in my life. I'm very fortunate to have him, and he knows what he's doing. I have two geologists that I worked with for several years, with private equity. They're awesome. Like have people that are smarter than you around you. Like you're never going to make a mistake when you've got smart people that know stuff you don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot I don't know. And so I don't want to act like I know everything. And certainly from an operational standpoint, like you start talking about sleeves and casing and, hey buddy, do what you do, brother. Like, you know better than I do. Like I can fake it for about a 20-minute conversation, but like when it gets down to the nuts and bolts, like you got to have somebody operationally that can handle it.
Be self-aware.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, because we've all got blind spots.
Yeah. You have to be willing to admit that. Like I am willing to admit I'm a terrible accountant. I'm a terrible operational engineer, and I'm a terrible geologist. I'm good at talking to people and raising money and like larger vision stuff, right? And that's my role, and I'm fine with it.
Well, and also I bet you're good at too is you've got a great partner that's an operational engineer. You've also got enough wherewithal to verify that. He's not just talking a good game. You're watching production go up. You're watching costs get cut. Mm-hmm. He's saying, hey, this is going to happen, and it happens. When it doesn't happen, he told you beforehand, hey, here's our risk here. That sleeve gets jammed, and I'll cut it off at $100,000 or whatever.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And then, you were talking about just the social media aspect. So, for the people that are on, I guess, Energy Financial Twitter that are listening to this, I'm Bunkie Perkins on Twitter. And I have, I don't know, 60,000 followers. Like, it's decent. Like I've been hesitant to go on Twitter and like reveal a ton of stuff, not because I'm scared of being doxxed or like, I don't care anymore.
Right.
But, I have young kids, I have a wife. Like, I don't want some joker standing, showing up at the door. In fact, at one point I got threatened. My favorite showing up at the door threatened Twitter interaction was with the late great, God rest his soul, Ryan Mallett, who was the quarterback at Arkansas. There was a point where he was a quarterback at Arkansas, and me and a couple buddies started a Twitter account called it was a Ryan Mallett Twitter account, and we pretended to be him. And he's just a real scumbag. He's from Texarkana, Arkansas, just diamond earrings, like the whole bit. And he found out who was in charge of it. I mean, because it wasn't like a big secret. And he threatened to come to my house and beat me up. 6'7". Like I was like, he's like, I will come to your house and Tulsa and kick your ass. Like,
right.
All right, Ryan, come on over. So all that to say, I'm kind of I'm a little slow to reveal a lot of that stuff, not because I'm worried about people finding out who I am, but more just like I have a wife and kids. I'm trying to protect them.
Yeah.
But I think I could go on Twitter and be like, hey, I'm trying to raise some money. I have enough people that follow me that I mean, I could probably do it. I'm a little hesitant to do that, I think.
So let me be your media advisor for just a second, because
Please do.
I went on a podcast last week and they called me a micro celebrity, and
I'm probably that too.
Of course, I had to do that. Well, I assume you mean from the waist above.
Yeah.
I had to do that gratuitous joke, but I would actually take a step back, because why do you have 60,000 followers? Because you're funny as shit. It's
right.
Great. I love reading that. I mean, man, and I hate Bobby Petrino too. I mean, it's your stuff's really funny. It's engaging and all, and I can tell by reading it. Okay, this guy's smart. You can't make these jokes if you're not smart. I would actually turn to your opinion about an SEC coach in some way, shape, or form. You've established that. So I don't know that I would go, hey, I'm raising money for this. I might start showing them some oil and gas stuff. Maybe it's Bunkie Perkins does oil, or maybe it's just through Bunkie Perkins.
Yeah.
But if you start showing some people, hey man, we're working this well over and stuff, I bet you start getting reach out of people saying, hey man, next time you want to do something, man, let me know. I want to finance it.
Yeah.
Because it's that thought leadership, authentic, genuine content that people go, I want to reach out to that guy.
Mm-hmm. I think people ask me a lot, like, hey, do you make any money off that Twitter account? No, I don't. And maybe that's to my own fault. Like,
right.
And I started it because, so before I was in oil and gas, I was working in sports. So when I finished law school, my first job, I was the assistant athletic director at Louisiana Tech. And then after that, I was a GM in the Arena Football League, which was a whole experience. That's where Bunkie Perkins actually came from.
I was, just so you know, the Houston team started off Texas Terror, and then they went to the Houston Thundercats or whatever. I was actually voted Voice of Thunder, and they wrote me up in the program about how I was the loudest, most obnoxious fan.
That's high praise from the Arena League. I was a GM of what became the New Orleans Voodoo.
Okay.
In the NFL.
Okay.
But I did that. I started the Twitter account because I was bored. Like in the off season, like what the hell are you gonna do?
Right.
And so started it like that. And so I've never really gained any monetary, benefit from it. But I will say I have met a ton of really cool people. I've gotten to do a lot of really cool stuff because of it. Like last year the PGA Championship was in Tulsa, right? And Scott Van Pelt and Stanford Steve were there doing the broadcast, and they hit me up on Twitter and were like, hey, you want to go to dinner? Like, yeah, I'd love to go to dinner with you, Scott Van Pelt.
Oh yeah.
And so Scott and Steve and I are friends. Like, we text back and forth. I text Steve a couple times during the football season, and like stuff like that. I get to go play a lot of really cool golf courses. Like I have a lot of friends that are involved in golf media or even professionals. And, I'll get to go do trips like that. And so it does have some return on my really crappy investment.
And I love this story because I think that happens in energy if we would just do it in energy. Correct. And we don't. We bury our heads in the sand.
There's a couple guys. So I got into, EFT, Energy Financial Twitter, during COVID, right? And so that's where I found you. That's where I found a lot of guys that are in the industry. And at the time, it was just a great coping mechanism because it was like, we're all in this shit sandwich together, boys. Let's just, but over time, it's really been beneficial just to, pick other people's brains, meet guys in the industry. You never know what another guy might have as an opportunity for you until you talk to him, until you reach out, until, if somebody on Twitter says something that like really interests you, hit him up, like hit him or her up.
Yeah. DMs are open.
Hey, dude, like, hey, I was really interested in what you're talking about. Let's, I think don't be afraid to do that is what I'm saying.
Well, and it's interesting because what I think Digital Wildcatters is going to have me do over the next year, because we've got our knowledge app Collide that we're going to launch a new version of in April. 2 years ago, we launched the really, really shitty version. And then a year ago, we made it slightly less shitty, but still pretty crappy. And so April, we're going to launch it. And so they're going to actually have me out on the road giving the old white guy speeches. And that's one of the things I'm going to say to the old white guys is, you don't understand. These kids are digitally native. I was in New York. My girlfriend's a partner at one of the big accounting consulting firms, and she had meetings, and, I'm unemployed, dude. And so she goes, okay, what are you going to do today? And I said, I'm going to go to a bar and have a drink with somebody I met on Twitter. And she goes, who's that? And I go, Frankie Four Fingers.
Sure.
And she's like, you go on somebody named Frankie Four Fingers? What's his real name or her real name? I'm like, I don't know.
We're going to find out.
I don't know. We had a great time.
Yeah. I've had several experiences like that. And like, you've just, while it might be a little scary to meet Frankie Four Fingers at a random bar in
New York,
in Red Hook, I don't know, but like, Yeah, you've got to take advantage of it because the crazy thing, I think in the industry, just in general, there's a huge age gap. Like I'm considered young. I'm 45 years old.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of guys under me, and
I'm considered young at 55.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the guys that are under me, you're right. They're listening to podcasts. They're on Twitter. They're they've got Discords. They're whatever it is, and the aging out industry, the aging out of our industry doesn't appreciate that. And they're going to have to eventually because we're going to be the only ones left.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think it's wholly important to embrace that. Like, don't be scared of it. And, use it to your advantage. And I'm talking to myself too, right?
Well, and I'm going to take you on the road with the speech because my speech is going to be kind of equal parts. They're digitally native. The other thing is they're amazingly collaborative.
Sure.
I mean, young people are collaborative where we've all had in the business, we've known something that nobody else has, and we made $1 million because we were able to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've pissed away $25 million because we wouldn't share information with somebody.
Right.
I mean, good God, how much money did we burn trying to figure out spacing? I got a software engineer buddy who sits there and goes, software engineers, we have Stack Overflow. And like some guy from Google will say, hey, I'm stuck. I can't write this code. And a guy from Microsoft will be like, oh, I wrote a patch for that 6 months ago. Why don't you try this?
Yeah.
I mean, that's Google and Microsoft.
Yeah.
Right. And could you imagine Chevron and Exxon sitting down? Let's learn how to space together, And this engineer always go, you mean to tell me 2 sections of land, you drop $250 million and you have not talked to your neighbor to see how their wells have done? Well, we got some data. No. Time
Public
out.
data. Yeah.
Public data sucks. Yeah. You haven't sat down.
Yeah.
So collaborative. And then the other thing is we're rolling on this. The other thing I've found about the kids just hanging out here at Digital Wildcatters is kids get their sense of fulfillment from so much more than their job. I want to hear what you have to say about this, because with my age, your sense of fulfillment was how much money do I make, what name is on my business card, and my kids' athletic achievements.
Right.
Period. Right? I mean, if your kid's an amazing musician, you would still kind of turn your nose up and go, oh, that. But that's it. But kids today, work maybe 20% of what their fulfillment. They like challenges. They like solving things. They're collaborative. They go out with their friends. They learn an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
They're just so much broader. But
I think for me, my life is pretty simple at this point. Like, and I like it that way. Like, Tulsa's a great town to keep it simple, right? I live 15 minutes from anything in Tulsa, and it's easy to get back and forth. So, like, between my kids and my wife and work, like, I enjoy going in the office. But I also enjoy, spending time with my kids, going and playing golf. Like, and I don't really care about, like, I don't care that I'm a CEO or a president or a managing partner or whatever the hell. Like, you can call me whatever you want. Like, my track record speaks for itself. Like, it doesn't really matter about that. Like, I'm going to make money because I'm good at what I do, not because, of any other, outside, situation. But I also look at, so my wife is, how much younger is she? She's 6 years younger than me. Sweet. Yeah.
High five.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. I'm gonna brag on her for a second, and nobody cares about this, but it's actually really cool for me personally. She about 7 years ago started a pillow company in one of our spare bedrooms. Right, it was before we had kids. She was just kind of screwing around, and was like, "Oh, I'll make some pillows and sell them on Etsy." We now have 8 warehouses, 35 employees, and sell all over the world.
No way!
It's crazy. She has contracts to do all of the VIP for F1 for Ferrari. She does all of Bugatti's stuff. She does Rolls Royce. She does Rolex. Like, it's hilarious.
How do people find that?
It's shoplittledesignco.com.
Shoplittledesignco.com.
Like, she just built it from scratch. We didn't take a dime of debt. We don't have any debt in that business. It's a multi-million-dollar business at this point. It's crazy. Like, famous people buy from us. the Kardashians on a regular buy from us. It's crazy.
Nice.
But she built that thing out of nothing. It's great for me because especially at $2 gas, I'm like, what?
Sweetie, you got this?
The kids can still, we can pay tuition this month, because but she's passionate about that, and she doesn't really care what her title is and doesn't really care about the money. Like, she loves her people. We have a lot of first generation Americans that work for us. And, that's just in any industry like that, where you're making something, you have people sewing for you. And like, it was super important to her to have health insurance for all those people. Like, we pay 100% of the health insurance. They don't pay anything. And it's not because we don't pay them enough. It's just because like the cost is de minimis for us in the long run. And it's more important to take care of those people. And so I take a lot of what she's done and try to apply it to what we do. And I don't know how good a job I do sometimes with it, but it's great that both of us are in the house together and we can kind of talk through two completely different industries, but have the same problems, especially like just managing people and managing expectations and thinking about growth and all this stuff. Like, it's been really cool to have, your partner in life also running $1 million company and can talk to her about stuff that normally you come home and like your spouse has been playing tennis all day and dealing with the kids, and like you don't have the opportunity to like vent about stuff because she or he doesn't understand.
Right.
So that has been very cool, and I'm very fortunate in that respect.
And and the story you just told kind of fits the vibe of what I was trying to talk about, the fulfillment. I mean, she's 38 or whatever, younger. That's what you get out of people like, man, I'm going to get everybody health insurance,
Yeah.
And it's not, well, how much money do I make today? That's kind of the vibe you get from kids, and the old white guys
they don't get that.
They don't get that.
Yeah.
Now, I will also say the old white guys in the oil and gas business have some of the biggest hearts on the planet.
Sure.
I mean, they really do. I mean, I don't think when oil was minus 37, I do not think a major charity in Houston went bankrupt, because oil and gas guys were like, well, this really sucks, but they did it.
They still struck the check.
So, okay. I need one really cool Stevens story.
Okay.
And Stevens, the Little Rock, Arkansas folks.
The cabal.
I worked there for 7 years, 6 years in the Houston office, 1 year in Dallas. I always said I wanted to do well, but not well enough to get promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And since you're a sports guy, I'll go with one of my favorite stories. So Jack Stevens was chairman of Augusta for 20 some odd years. And he would put the green jacket on the winner, and he was always so publicity shy that, it kind of killed him to do that. But anyway, so back, I think it was 1972, the Masters always been on CBS.
Right.
So CBS and whoever the chairman of Augusta have a really good relationship.
Right.
And so CBS owns the Yankees at the time. They'd bought it, 5 years before, because this was going to be entertainment for the TV. And baseball is just a shit show. Yeah. And CBS, kind of quickly realized this is not our jam. So CBS picks up the phone and calls Jack and says, hey, Jack, we own the Yankees. We have no idea what we're doing. We spent $12 million on it. We're a public company. Give us $12 million so we don't take a loss and all this, and we'll give you the Yankees. Jack Stevens said, can I move them down here to Little Rock?
That is quintessential Stevens.
And CBS said, that might not be the best move, Jack. He goes, well, I really appreciate the phone call, but I'm not interested.
Well, and then they built the Stevens baseball facility in Little Rock.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
we can do this.
That family, and it's such a, like, unless you're, I guess, deep into oil and gas, or even investing with Stevens Inc., like, you don't really know about them. Those jokers, like, they're amazing. That's an amazing family, and I learned a ton. I worked for them for 3.5 years. I learned a ton just on. Yes, I mean, they're
shrewd.
They're super shrewd,
amazingly shrewd.
Yeah, learning how to save money, learning how to protect your assets, learning how to take advantage. Like right now, they are probably buying at $2 gas. They're out there buying, and that's the way it should be done. It's like, okay, in good times, you're saving your money, you're being responsible, and then when gas goes to 2 or oil goes to 40, then you start buying. Then there's blood in the streets, and that they've made their entire living, multiple generations off of that. And so I took a lot from them. I'm very grateful. So I have a good story. I have a good oil and gas story that has nothing to do with the Stevens family, but I think it's something you'll enjoy. Energy Transfer. Okay. Kelsey Warren.
Yeah.
Okay. Very wealthy individual. Kelsey, we have mutual friends, Kelsey and I do. And one of those friends was getting married. I happened to be in his wedding. And so Kelsey, you talked about, old white guys being magnanimous, and Kelsey hosted the bachelor party.
Oh my God.
I drove down, I think I was living in Fayetteville at the time. And my buddy Chris, who was getting married, calls me. He goes, "Hey, our bachelor party, I really don't know what's going on. Just drive to Dallas and meet me at the Millionaire FBO." Okay, I can certainly do that. Get there, and it's Kelsey. Okay, he's got his Falcon airplane ready for us. Is 20 of us get on the plane. Okay, don't know where we're going. Like, I have no idea where we're going. Okay, we start heading south. Like real south. Like we passed the Yucatan Peninsula. I'm like, what the fuck? Where are we going? We land in Roatan, Honduras. Okay.
Wow.
All right. We get off the plane in Roatan. There's another plane. It's a Cessna. It's the biggest Cessna they make. It's like an 8-seater. Right. We get on that. We fly to Kelsey's private island off the coast of Honduras. It's called Barbaretta Island. You can look it up. It used to be an old drug dealer's haven. Okay. But he bought the island and may or may not have hired some SEALs to go in there and clean out, quote unquote, the island. And so we land on the island. Okay. And he has a full security staff, like dudes with automatic weapons, the whole deal. Like think of the greatest rich guy drug cartel thing you can think of. It pretty much was that. And we spent the weekend on his island. And that's cool enough, right? He's got like a 50,000 square foot house that overlooks, the water, and it's just amazing. He had a zip line course all throughout the island, and the last zip line went from in the jungle into his living room, like wild stuff.
Right.
Great guy. But the crazy part about it was on Sunday, we're sitting there, we're having breakfast, and Kelsey gets a phone call, and he goes, leaves the room, comes back, says, "Guys, I need to talk to you." He goes, "Listen, that was the CIA. There is a coup going on currently in Honduras. We're going to land in Honduras. Don't fuck it up," basically. And so it was, I mean, maybe I'm talking out of school, but I think it was a U.S. government-backed coup. And so we land in Roatan, and the military's waiting on us. They walk us from the Cessna to Kelsey's plane, and we all get on the plane. Don't say a word. Yeah. And take off and land back in Dallas.
Holy shit.
So a bachelor party at Kelsey Warren's private island in Honduras with a government coup.
Nice.
That is about as good of a oil and gas story that I have of just.
That's top 5 of all time.
Yeah. I still have pictures from it. It's great. Kelsey's you think, he's a killer. Like the guy's a killer.
Yeah.
But he's also a super nice guy.
Yeah. Well, what I've always said about Kelsey is I don't want to divide a pie with him.
Yeah.
But I'd do business with him on a handshake if the pie discussion was always already cut,
And he came from nothing. He's just an old country boy from East Texas.
Yeah.
Like he was not, nepotism was not in play for him. And so I certainly don't think I'll ever be Kelsey Warren, but it's possible. That guy came from nothing and literally
it's the beauty of America.
Yeah.
The back when I was at Stevens, we were for the year I was there in Dallas, we were in the Crescent.
Mm-hmm.
And Ray Davies
Mm-hmm.
and Kelsey Warren had started Energy Transfer, and it was in a little house kind of diagonally across the street.
And they still have that
Crescent.
house. That
Oh,
house,
do they really?
that house is still. I don't know if anybody works out of there.
Yeah.
So, and Ray retired and owns the Rangers.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is another interesting.
Because I went to a meeting there. I actually took Rick Turner of Stevens with me into that meeting. Charlie Waters and Cliff Harris,
Sure,
the Dallas Cowboys, worked for Energy Transfer, and they were sitting there.
Yes, they did. Yeah, that's a very interesting company, and Kelsey's one of the guys I definitely look up to, but also I wouldn't want to cross.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're gonna get out of here. I used to on the podcast, I would do 5 questions. Remember when Craig Kilborn ran the Daily Show before Stewart came in, and he would always do the 5 questions. I used to do that on the podcast. If it wasn't the middle of NAPE, I would have had 5 questions written for you. So I don't have that.
Okay.
I got one question.
Okay, one question.
Bunkie Perkins, cage match, 3-year Letterman. Who wins?
I mean, Coach, he gets definitely. He's probably got the leverage on me. I'm not small. I mean, I'm a pretty big guy, but I feel like his technique would probably win over. He's a great Twitter account. If you don't follow him, he's one of my favorites. And so, yeah, 3-year Letterman. I'm going to give him the win. I'll give him the win.
All my money's on Bunky. I'm all in on Bunky. You got him.
I appreciate that. I am falling apart daily physically, and so I think Coach will probably take me. I'm willing to take that.
But you did not finance your waterbed, so
well, not yet. $2 gas. Who knows?
Who knows? Got the pillow business.
That's right. God bless,
dude.
pillows.
Thanks for coming on. This is
thank
cool.
you so much. All the EFT people that listen. I know sometimes I don't interact with you guys, but I'm always reading you guys. You make me laugh and keep me sane on a consistent basis.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, man.